Smart farming is increasingly discussed in agriculture because it promises many benefits. But me as an ecologist, I ask myself, will it really benefit biodiversity as well?
Many people working with the smart farming has proposed this technology as an improvement for agricultural practices. And the main premise is to break the one machine, one man paradigm. And they try to do that by increasing efficiency, by producing more food, increasing yields, and also by reducing fertilizers or reducing inputs in the fields.
There are many potential benefits of smart farming to biodiversity. If we have small robots instead of very large machinery, we don't have to modify our fields so that the large machinery can move, but the small robots can navigate the fields themselves. Small robots will also cause much less soil compaction than our current large and heavy machinery, so this is an additional benefit for soil structure, but also for life in soil. If we have sensors that detect insect infection, we could spray targeted only those plants where pest insects occur, reducing the overall amount of insecticide that we spray. If we have sensors that detect weeds in the field, we can spray the weeds and we don't have to spray the entire field. In fact, highly developed sensors might be able to distinguish between very noxious weeds and harmless weeds and only spray those weeds that are very noxious, leaving the others for the nutrition of insects. Fungicides can unfortunately not be replaced at the moment, but with small robots and detection of infected plants, we can also target our fungicide applications to infected plants, reducing the overall amount of plant protection products that we can use on the field. On the one hand, smart farming holds lots of potential for biodiversity. On the other hand, however, these benefits do not come automatically. And this is very important to understand. We divide the effects of agriculture on biodiversity into on-site, off-site, and landscape level effects. Off-site effect means that there's a spillover of plant protection products and fertilizers to sites outside the fields. This is likely to be reduced if smart farming is used because the machinery will use reduced amounts of fertilizer and insecticide. But the proof is still not there that this will actually happen. On-site effects refer to the effects on the field. And here we can envisage a scenario where biodiversity is benefiting, but we can also envisage a scenario where biodiversity is actually harmed. If our robots kill all the weeds on the field, there will be even fewer plants on the field than before. If we use the robots to always spray insecticide, then there will be much less insects on the field. Landscape level effects refer to the effect of agricultural fields in a landscape where you also have natural habitats. So agricultural fields are barriers for animals to move. And also the total amount of agricultural field that we have will determine how much biodiversity we can have in the landscape. If smart farming allows us to convert places that previously we couldn't use for agriculture because it was too difficult for large machinery to maneuver, for example slopes or fields where we have stones, then we would actually increase the total agricultural area in a landscape, reducing biodiversity. On the other hand, smart farming will not change the barrier effect of existing fields to animals in the landscape because the number of fields, their extent will be the same. So there will be no positive effect of smart farming on much of this landscape level effect.
What we're proposing is a framework in which both targets, crop production and biodiversity, are combined in the development of these technologies associated with the smart farming. However, it is important to realize that the implementation of these technologies associated with the smart farming might differ depending on the region of the world that we're discussing. For example, the global north and the global south. The challenges in the global north would be to maintain yield and try to restore part of the biodiversity that is already lost in these agricultural environments. In the global south, on the contrary, the challenge is different because in these environments we need to try to increase yield while preserving and maintaining the biodiversity that is already there, which is normally quite high. But we cannot forget that these two regions of the world, they vary in the environmental, economical, and societal challenges.
To realize the full potential of smart farming for both productivity and biodiversity outputs, a radical change of the vision is required that incorporates both crop production and biodiversity targets as integrated goals. To achieve this, a number of actions are required. Funding agencies should prioritize research that develops optimized smart farming technology that is suited to meet and promote both targets. Scientists from different disciplines, including information scientists, engineers, agronomists, and ecologists, need to work together to incorporate insights from agroecology and more biodiversity-friendly farming practices such as intercropping, multicropping, or agroforestry into the new framework. This can then instruct the software developed to make decisions that balance productivity and biodiversity. This generated knowledge can then guide the development of the improved hardware that is optimized to operate in future landscapes. Finally, these information technological advances will not improve agricultural practices if they're not taken up by both industry and individual farmers. Ways to co-create technology that is acceptable for farmers have already been laid out, but they need to be supported by appropriate legislation, solving questions, for example, about data ownership. An uptake by industry and the development of best practices should be supported by government incentives, for example, through direct financial support or through tax reductions. Given a new framework to integrate agricultural production and ecological conservation targets into smart farming development, policies and implementation, smart farming will be a very promising solution to today's agricultural environmental issues. However, without such a new framework, the biodiversity benefits of smart farming will not be guaranteed.